In this WrestleTalk news, WWE Stars may be repackaged soon, others are feeling uneasy backstage, our reviews of SmackDown and Rampage, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Since Triple H has taken up control in WWE again and we've seen the returns of several released WWE stars, attention has turned to those wrestlers who had an established and well-liked character in Triple H's NXT, but were repackaged immediately upon arriving to the main roster, or NXT 2.0. You know, Butch, Theory, Gunther, Ludwig Kaiser, etc. Many have been expecting people to get their first names back at the very least, such as Ciampa regaining his Tommaso, and now there might be something pointing towards that. Fightful Select is reporting that the feeling backstage in WWE is that there might be a WWE draft before long, as following Clash at the Castle on September 3rd, several Raw stars are booked for the SmackDown after on September 9th, and several SmackDown stars are booked for the Raw episodes on September 5th and 12th, which has led to speculation backstage that this could be the time for another WWE draft. Also, speaking of Clash at the Castle, we have a watch party. Link is in the description. Come watch the show with the WrestleTalk crew. Click the link, do the thing. This isn't the only evidence though, as there have been other things that they have said to lead them to believe to be the case as well. But perhaps most excitingly for WWE fans is what the report goes on to say. Repackages are also more likely following this date as opposed to the immediate future. So those people that have been speculated to be repackaged, like Max Dupree or T-Bar, they might not be waiting all that long for a makeover. While this might just be the latest, well, wait till this date, then we'll really see what Triple H's WWE looks like. It is also a solid indicator of the directions Triple H will be taking, and considering that one of the reported pitches following Karrion Kross's return was for him to take one of the world titles off Roman Reigns, it would make sense for him to be drafted to Raw right after so they can have one of the world titles again. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in WWE right now, as according to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, there's some uneasiness brewing on the NXT UK brand in particular, as the next set of tapings for the show were reportedly cancelled. It's not just the cancellation that's causing uneasiness though, but the fact that it wasn't postponed or moved to a different location. PW Insider followed up with something that might indicate something worse for the future of NXT UK though, saying, currently there are no TV tapings for that brand scheduled in Great Britain. But in a sign of potential optimism, there may be a chance that NXT UK could film some episodes in the Orlando Performance Center instead. With Triple H in control of WWE now, some thought that this would lead to an increased protection of NXT UK as a sort of hunter's baby. But now this might seem to indicate the opposite. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And now it's time for my review of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being awesome pledgehammers on our Patreon page, fantastic Mr. Good Old Fox, and the venerable Jesse Venable. You can get your own shout out and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. This show began immediately with a match, furthering the Women's Tag Team Championship tournament with Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah versus Shotzi and Xia Li. This is good. More matches, starting shows, please. This match was pretty solid, nothing mega special or anything, but they got given some time, they had a good structure to the match, ending with Raquel hitting the powerbomb for the win. Nothing to complain about here, thumbs up from me. After a recap of Karrion Kross's return last week, he cut a promo in a spooky backstage room, which was solid stuff, saying he'd waited a year and now time was running out, etc. TikTok. And then the camera pans across and you can see him waiting while Drew McIntyre's about to make his entrance, so did he set up the spooky smoke room? Did someone from production make that bit look extra dark for him and then assign that to be the Karrion Kross promo section? It was an odd disconnect between the slightly more supernatural and cartoonish element of Kross and the realism Triple H likes to have across his shows. Drew McIntyre came out next though, and would you look at that, he doesn't have a sword anymore. I guess Vince wanted it back because it is his sword after all. That's a big plus here. The sword always felt like it got in the way and led to unrealistic expectations that WWE could never pull off because Drew couldn't chop a man in half. Drew's promo was great here, saying that Roman needed all the tools in his arsenal to beat Brock Lesnar, but Drew beat him at WrestleMania with his bare hands. Kross's music hit and out came Scarlett, and using that distraction, the Usos attacked Drew and actually stood tall like it was a 2-on-1 beatdown or something and not having the tag champions look like chumps. The Usos told Scarlett off mic that if Kross comes here, they'll put him down because this is bloodline territory. Scarlett responded by saying, "That's funny. Kross had the same message for you." Once again, Big thumbs up from me. This makes everyone involved look better, and for once, it made the Usos actually feel important and like the tag champs. I sure hope that doesn't get undone by the end of this show. It was supposed to be Kofi Kingston versus Ivar next, but Kofi attempted to attack the Viking Raiders on their entrance, but they beat him up, with Ivar hitting a big splash off the barricade onto the stage, which was a nice visual. This was something I mentioned on the WrestleTalk podcast episode that went up yesterday, that even if it's a heel beating up a babyface, you can still have it be exciting and look interesting rather than a standard and boring one, and this was an example of that. This was good. Though next week they're advertising a Viking funeral for the New Day, which I'm less excited about. Sami Zayn tried to speak to the Usos, but they got blindsided by Drew, and Sami ran away. Makes perfect sense for everyone's characters. I like it. There were a couple of jobbers in the ring when Hit Row made their return. Ashante the Adonis and Top Dollar accompanied by B-Fab. I do feel like this trio is missing something without Swerve being there, but having said that, I thought they looked really good in this tag match and displayed that level of charisma that we fell in love with in NXT. After a quick promo re-explaining who they were, I'm excited to have another tag team to add to the mix. Before the contract signing between Liv Morgan and Shayna Baszler gets underway, Ronda Rousey shows up through the crowd, says she was fined a lot of money, and dumps said money onto the table, before security showed up to escort her out. She said, "Let's see how that ends for you," and then didn't really do anything before being escorted out. Yeah, you show 'em, Ronda. On the ramp, she stared off with Shayna Baszler, who told her this isn't how this works, you need to play by the rules to get what you want, and Ronda told her that she used to be a killer. Whether this is leading to a feud or a tag team, I'm into it either way. Shayna signed the contract, Liv Morgan signed the contract, and then Shayna beat up Liv's injured arm. Yay. Liv stood tall though, just managing to hit a bulldog through the table, which was a nice spot, though I feel Shayna needed the standing tall moment a bit more than Liv did. The Usos were mad at Sami Zayn backstage for running away when Drew attacked them earlier, and then they went to the ring to call out Drew for a tag match with whoever he wants as a tag partner. In classic Drew fashion, he didn't wait, answered immediately, and didn't have a tag partner. And while he got the initial upper hand through some babyface fire, the Usos took control, as they should, because I can't stress this enough, they're the tag champions and are a better unit together than Drew is by himself. But then, someone came out to even the odds to be Drew McIntyre's partner. Is it another Triple H returning talent? No, it's Madcap Moss, which felt honestly out of place, and he felt completely irrelevant in this match as well, being worked over, then being beaten down after Drew's hot tag and not playing into the finish either. It's a weird choice. Sami Zayn came out to distract Drew, leading to a great near fall, but Drew fought back and got the win with the Claymore. I don't know how to feel about Drew winning because, yeah, he's your #1 contender, but the Usos are your tag champions in a tag team match. They shouldn't be losing in the place they thrive in most, especially not to a Franken team. Now, if only there was some solution to this problem, some way that someone in this match could be pinned, meaning the Usos still win, but Drew McIntyre doesn't have to take the fall. I just can't think of any way to make that happen. Los Lotharios backstage want to be signed to Maximum Male Models and want to use Maxine Dupree to get there. Hey, would you look at that? It's a story. And after they played a video package earlier in the night highlighting the legacy of the Intercontinental Championship and a great video package hyping up Gunther and Shinsuke Nakamura, it was time. And I was legitimately quite excited for the main event of the Intercontinental Championship match. But first, here's an ad break, and here's a recap of Ricochet winning against Happy Corbin last week, and here's a Ricochet promo where Corbin beats him up, and here's a video package about Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark ahead of their women's tag team match next week, and here's the entrances for the main event, and then another ad break. If you're gonna hype up people for the main event match, maybe deliver on that hype just a little quicker, or a lot quicker. I have no issue with the segments that came here, just put them somewhere else on the show. But having said that, this Gunther versus Shinsuke Nakamura match was so much fun. Stiff kicks, chops, punches, a brutal looking knee to the face from Nakamura. This was great. After a brilliant near fall where Gunther countered Shinsuke's Kinshasa into a lariat, he managed to hit a dropkick to the back of Shinsuke's head and hit a powerbomb for the win. Much like the rehabilitation of the United States title on Raw, the Intercontinental Championship is undergoing the same treatment here. And I'm all for it. Giving it a spotlight, great matches, and some hype surrounding it is a surefire way to do that, and this makes Gunther and Shinsuke look better coming out of it than when they went in. Overall, this SmackDown had some issues, but they're relatively minor in comparison to my usual complaints. I'm not sold on the Madcap Moss inclusion on this show, but most everything else was at least good, with a great main event. Pacing is still an issue, and the camera work too, notably on this episode during the main event, but I'd give this episode a high 3 out of 5. And now, hot tag to Tempest.
This episode of Rampage kicks off with Bryan Danielson saying that like a 4-year-old iPhone, he will probably never be at 100%, but someone will have to break him to get him to stop wrestling. This brings out Kangol Garcia, the best Daniel Garcia, to say that Bryan was his hero, and seeing Bryan retire and come back hurts him, and that makes him want to hurt Bryan. Bryan then kicks this promo into high gear and puts Garcia over huge for his 60-minute match with Wheeler Yuta on the Indies, a match that everyone should watch, and asks if Garcia wants to be a sports entertainer or a wrestler. This was the best thing on the show, and it looks like just as Jon Moxley was Yuta's barrier of entry for the Blackpool Combat Club, Bryan might be Garcia's, and that is a perfect fit. 4 out of 5. We then had our first match for the AAA Mixed Tag Team Championship as Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello defended the titles against Dante Martin and Sky Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die. If she was green, she would die. I'm really happy to see Sky Blue get a chance to shine on TV, and she did just that, starting with a big crossbody. Dante hit a step-up destroyer off of Ty's back, and this is where the match really peaked, and we got "This Is Awesome" chants. Ty managed to blindside Sky and hit the Ty KO for the win in a really fun match. 4 out of 5. Parker Boudreaux then squashed Sonny Kiss, and I know they must have wanted to showcase the Trustbusters before the Trios tournament, but I really wish we didn't have to sacrifice this episode of Rampage to do it. Harland looks incredibly uncoordinated in the ring and got the quick win after a chokeslam and his finisher that I don't know the name of. They didn't tell me, so I don't feel bad not knowing. 2 out of 5. Tension is brewing between Private Party and Los Ingobernables, and then we got the fever dream match of Beardhausen versus the Ass Boys. This was straightforward. Eric Redbeard is big and unbeatable. Danhausen is small and very beatable. The Ass Boys won with the Fameasser, and then Billy yelled at them to toughen up and that they will have a match next week on TV. I know it's kind of become a thing that I dislike the Ass Boys, but I really do think they're overexposed on TV these days. There are a boatload of people on this roster that would really benefit from the extra TV time that the Ass Boys keep getting, and I'm personally starting to lose my patience with this. Replace every Ass Boys match with a women's match, and your show will improve. 2 out of 5. Danhausen was over though. Swerve and Our Glory set up their match with Private Party, and then Hook cut a promo. Sort of. Tony Schiavone asked if the FTW title was still under open challenge rules, and Hook said, yup. He was then interrupted by some guy. Zach Clayton challenges Hook to a match next week on Rampage, and it is at this moment that I wonder why we got an episode of Dark packaged as Rampage this week. Seriously, you can try and say this isn't a B show all you like, but when would half of this show ever take place on Dynamite? Who the is Zach Clayton anyway? He's married to JWoww? Damn, alright. Sorry, Roger. Maybe don't be a dickhead next time, I guess. 2 out of 5. And then we got the main event as Orange Cassidy took on Ari Daivari. The work was good, as you would likely expect from these two, but there really wasn't much for me to bite onto here. The match peaked at the very start when Daivari asked Orange to lie down for him, and Orange did, and just rolled away from him when Daivari tried to pin him. I laughed. The rest of the match was standard, with the Best Friends and the Trustbusters fighting on the outside, before Orange got the win with the Orange Punch. This felt like a fine opening match that just happened to be the main event. Afterwards, it appeared that Sonny Kiss would back up the Best Friends, but instead she turned heel, kicking Cassidy in the Oranges and joining the Trustbusters. Didn't see that coming at all, but I guess I'll care a little bit more about the Trustbusters now. 3 out of 5. Overall, at best, this show was fine, and at worst, it was a waste of time after that mixed tag. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the lowest rated episode of Rampage ever, and it's getting the lowest rating I've ever given the show. 2 out of 5. You can absolutely skip this one.
In this WrestleTalk news, WWE and Bray Wyatt have a clean slate, more release stars returning on SmackDown, and why Kevin Dunn is still going to be producing WWE. So subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.